Hey guys, this is Caleb Joshua Williams, and this is going to be the first ever video of Zarquon Prime ever. If you didn't know what it is, Zarquon Prime is basically a map remix chain. Pretty much made from basically a project which was basically titleless. I mean, it used to not have a title. It was called Map of the USM back then. Back then, I actually created it a title, basically, for some reason. Back then, I actually wanted to create a wordplay on the United States of America and matter. So I got the United States of matter. The stripes represent the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. The stars represent the current known states of matter, which has 17. Go copy that link of Wikipedia page if you don't even know what it is. But yeah, basically the United States of Matter is basically a wordplay on the United States and the states of matter. It has 17 stars. And ironically, the stars are basically all made of plasma, so yeah. Just note that this was basically the aftermath of me actually raging against Carlin's Alhen. Alhenia was created because basically the content of Alhenia was basically created because just to show off Carlin's Alhen superiority. I mean, things haven't changed ever since, and things are basically heating up ever since. The first content of Alhenia here is formed. He created the layout of the news and the layout of the stats, and put a continent in the middle of the ocean. He went on to never remix ever again. Which is basically sad, because this remix chain was actually created by him. And, I mean, I started the project, so I was basically the only one who actually had more lore and band and stuff to the remix. Carlin 12357 actually created the first project of the remix chain. I created zeros. So he wanted to contribute nothing, and I went on to contribute stuff. I mean, he created this continent just to show his Alhen superiority, and likes to add Alhen in his conscripts. I had a grudge between Alhen and me back then, but yeah. And then someone actually went on to actually continue the remix chain. And then suddenly I did. A humane species called Marinians colonized Alhenia. These are the first ever species to actually exist in Alhenia. They were the natives of this place. They go more norther. Yes, they go more north. And someone added an island here. I tried to give it the first ever society to exist on this earth. But somehow, Hot Crystal, basically, he wanted to actually put a country. Hot Crystal, basically, he wanted to create his colony and his empire. Basically, the first country formed is Uranus lands. And I give it more territory. Even though this country is basically not from here. Because of this, basically, you see, the Uranus land, by the looks of the Uranus flags, Uranus land actually has territory in England and in England, Nogaxen, which its remix chain actually ended it after remix 100, so everyone had to flee this planet. Zarquon Prime and Unnamed Planet. I participated in all four of those. Literally named Dynasty. And just on an interesting side note, the Nations of Funny map actually have colonies in the Zarquon Prime universe, which is basically pretty crazy in itself. But Engen and Nogaxen basically don't have any or don't exist anymore. It would be funny if they actually wanted to actually live on Zarquon Prime. It would be pretty cool. It would be pretty cool. Why it's here is basically not certain, but it would probably be something more than that sooner or later. Then, the Uranus lands expands into Northern Orlel, and that's where the tip of Northern Orlel is colonized for the first time. And then it was annexed. And then another island was discovered, Ulysses. This little island is basically pretty much where the Dynasties are planning to settle. The Dynasties discovered it, and basically they wanted to colonize it. I made Southern Orlel appear because I wanted to fill in the gap of Northern Orlel. But I had to make the right move to actually make it not be discovered yet. I put in the description called Marine Alternians. You might not want to know about this one. And then came the 11th remix, Dynid, because basically the dynasty pretty much forms on Ulysses and colonizes it. Because basically, colonizing is basically a pretty word. And then the 12th remix, the Washable Kingdom, was created by Oot5 Rises Again, a person that actually participated in the remix chain. Another detail created by Oot, I don't know what his purpose was. The Uranus lands expands, discovering Southern Orlel. This time, Southern Orlel gets the tip of Southern Orlel gets colonized by Uranus lands. And then Jabba and Jellyfy Empire actually colonizes this part. And then number 15, Hush Hush. Uranus land splits into north and south, while Jabal and Wook are in a raging war. They have a civil war on the top of themselves, while Alhenia has North Uranus lands and Southern Uranus lands. They're basically acting like they're two countries, but they're actually not two countries. The Uranians are not related to the Maronians. And basically the Asterians are also not related to the Maronians. And that's basically because of this. Oh hey, look, it's pretty much the bendy thing guy. Hey, say hi, bendy thing guy. Isn't he pretty cute? Anyways, pretty much Uranus land splits into north and south, while Jump and are in a raging war. The Dynastarians are pretty much colonized at the bottom of the Ulysses island. And then the Washable Kingdom colonizes Alhenia, which is pretty much crazy because some people will do things. These are countries with no real owner, and basically don't have any part to play about colonizing stuff. The countries are actually OC, where people can't bend their will. The Uranus lands are basically owned by Hot Crystal, my scratch friend. Dynasty is actually owned by me, and no one else, because heck, Usao is actually owned by me, which you'll see in the next slide, and some other characters as well, but who cares about them? And here we go. And then the Northern Uranus lands expands to interact with the Maronian Alhenians. And then we have and then it expands. And eventually, basically, Northern Uranus lands actually turns into a kingdom, while the southern one becomes a republic. Which means Big Land actually colonized the Republic of Uranus lands. Which means that Big Land actually has territory that was from the Republic of the Uranus lands. And basically, that the Alhenians actually subjugate the Maronian Alhenians actually subjugate the Washable King Kingdom people and the Cole as well. The dynasty actually colonized Green Alhenia, which is pretty crazy as well. From there, Greyfania forms and finds a new island, which is basically crazy on its own. It's basically a nation that's, oh gosh, the big AI thing has come up. Here we go. Greyfania actually forms pretty much near the Washable Kingdom and actually finds a new island. And Jabal, he cuts to the chase. There's still the Green Alhenia, as we know and see. But basically, Jabal Republic actually turned the Greyfanian Island into an oval shape. And then Dynasty expands, annexing the Eleusis. I wasn't there for the majority of the remix chain, to be honest. Greyfania expands and is in a raging war while Big Land forms. The purpose of Jaden is to actually subjugate the entire map of this world into Greyfania North and Biglandian South, known as the Great Purge. I don't know if it was his intention to do this, but it might actually be anyway. Jabs and WK are basically enemies of each other. The Washable Kingdom might actually exist in the future, while the Jabal Republic becomes one lost country with no heritage. Bigland actually formed on the southern tip of the Southern Alel Islands. So it's not actually the continuation of the Republic of Uranus Land. It's this country formed in the year of 23. And then Big Land and both Uranus Landises expand, which means that they'll probably meet each other in Southern Alel. Some island forms as well, and there's also another island which basically exists as well. And here we can see the process of the making of Alhenat, getting influence on Washable Kingdom in Greyfania. While in the south, the Kingdom of Uranus Lands is actually influencing this part of Alhenia, while the Marine Alhenians are being ransacked by the Green Alhenians. Notice them. Well, this area is basically uncolonized. And then the Jabali moment. Basically, the Jabali Republic actually colonizes the Washable Kingdom and the tip of this island right over there. And actual GYA actually loses some land, which is right over there. And basically, the Jabali moment actually exists. This is the part. The part where basically, this is the moment. The moment where people have been waiting. The legendary moment. What? A moment. The first time when the most humongous moment in history ever since the first ever project. Ever since Map Remix Chain number 1. Get ready for its legendary moment. Yes, this was the first time that Rude Buster from Deltarune has played in the world soundtrack. And it played on ever since, until the remixes of 100. It was the first war that they ever had. The Marine Alhenians were basically traumatized by the explosions. All nations had to participate. Big Land, Raw, Cole, Greyfania, Washable Kingdom, Jabali Republic, and the Dynasty. Some Marine Alhenians had to participate for the war, while others had to starve and pretty much suffer for some reason. It was a gruesome war, to say the least. And it lasted for 1 year. And then the... Wait, we're in the long... Oh, whoops, wrong timeline. There. Now we're at a better timeline. Jabali does what it does best, sharing land. Jabali Republic actually obtains more land from Washable Kingdom, and actually gets DYA in Washable Kingdom. And then there's just more guns and violence. And somehow Jabali Republic actually finds some new islands. Greyfania no longer wars Jab, and is friends with Jabs, and teams up to defeat WK, while Jab finds new islands. This island right over here went on to actually be owned by Coral. Oh, the dynasty actually called basically Southern Alal. Southern Alal was divided into 3 countries, while Northern Alal is still actually owned by the Republic of Uranus lands. Carlin's contributions barely even changed. The wording on Alhenia, the sides of here and there, but there was still music. Jabs and GYA start invading, while Washable Kingdom still existed for some reason. It's pretty crazy that they still exist for some reason. And then Big Land actually stole some land from the dynasty, and Uranus land basically still exists for some reason. Jabs and GYA start invading each other, which is basically crazy since they only had 99 lives of their life because of this. Jabs and GYA start invading for some reason. GYA and WK just slash each other. Basically, Zarquon Prime actually has its basic share of architecture by making really long bridges to the basic countries because they never want to actually sail to the republics. The first bridges were actually made in the Remix 31, when the Jolly Republic wanted to actually connect its lands to each other, and the WK and GYA. It's pretty messed up to see that their enemies are actually connecting with each other. The North is actually interconnected with them, while the South pretty much not. Especially the Uranus lands, Dynasty, Big Land, and the Maronians. And then Big Land actually takes over the Republic of Uranus lands. The Republic of Uranus lands gets annexed by Big Land in a very unsatisfying way. They get infinitely nuked by it. It's billions and billions of nukes, tons of families destroyed, houses left to rubble. Everything was not as it seems. Yeah, basically, Jab and Jolly actually saw this as hectic, and basically, Big Land versus Land is basically the Republic of the Uranus lands actually was the Northern Alal, and Big Land was the Southern Alal. Yeah, and basically, and once the Republic of Uranus lands actually got anschlussed by them, the Kingdom of Uranus lands was next. And now they're attacking on Alhenian territory. Plus, Big Land actually invaded the Kingdom of Uranus lands. The kingdom was about to become sieged by the Big Landers. And now, Cal purchases land from Greyfania to keep on living, and royal reforms. The royal reformers escaped the northern island to actually be in the Alhenian mainland. And then, basically, Cole gets anschlussed by Big Land. And the Republic of Uranus lands actually gets anschlussed by Big Land, and Cole actually becomes barbaric by Big Land. Which is going to become heck. Cole is almost gone, and Jab thinks the GYA is next. This is basically a plot by Apania. This is basically a plot by Jaden. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to actually annex 2 sides of the world. Probably that. The Jolly Republic thinks that Greyfania is next. But basically, he calls God and God finds out that yeah, but it is actually not. But bad news for Dynasty. See, this was their plan all along. To actually entrust the entire world. Well, by 2 entire sides. The Greyfania North and the Big Blender South. Which is bad news for my Dynasty. The creator wasn't involved in this, basically. The Maroon Alhenians were also under attack. And then the Uranus lands are back and united. And basically, they finally have an island. Which is pretty crazy since they actually finally got an island for some reason. The Dynasty is basically still here for some reason. The Dynasty basically keeps nuking and got unreactive in the process. Ulysses becomes annexed by Big Land for the first time. And then they're trying to actually nuke Uranus lands. Which is pretty crazy. Which basically becomes too much unfairness for everybody. Except for Greyfania. I mean, that was his plan all along. To actually annex the 2 halves. Jolly Republic might actually be fair on this, but I don't care. And then Remix 42 happened. Basically, Ireland forms. The first ever country that that's exactly native to this continent for some reason. And is entirely not an OC. Ireland forms because, I mean, yeah, basically that. It was the first society actually developed by actual Maronians. Which means its area is basically not inhabited by human people. I mean, the Maronians actually traveled through it, but not on it. And now Ireland, with an export of 97,104 bombs, actually nukes out Big Land. This was their first rivalry. And this was their first fight. The Uranus lands keep nuking each other. These things. Yep, this is pretty much one of these banquets that cannot be missed for some reason. And then Uranus land starts attacking Big Land. It's basically a war between each other. Big Land was basically a dislikable country. But the puppeteer behind this was Greyfania. I mean, Jaden 678 Jaden 678 created Greyfania and Big Land to actually dominate 2 sides of the entire world. But I wanted to spare the Jolly Republic because they like the Jolly Republic. These guys are historical countries for some reason. In Ireland, 10 nukes Big Land nukes Ireland, and the Uranus lands exist. They just attack each other. Yeah, we basically had to actually create a studio for this remix chain because they didn't really keep doing so for some reason. And, I mean, that's how it is for some reason. And in the academic studies of whole, we make sure whole. Because at the Academy of Alheni University, we make sure that your mind becomes more focused on our entire country rather than the entire world. So please, be quiet and keep on doing stuff. Uranus lands start attacking Big Land for some reason. And they keep nuking each other. The only Alhenian that's left, the only part of the dynasty that's left is Green Alhenia. And then whenever BL invades another country, a plot twist happens. And now this island is basically divided against the Iranians and the Big Lenders. And basically, this island, just like this island is divided by the Jolly Republic and the GYA. And meanwhile, Mars is formed with the and being shaped like the letter C. Yes, Sealand. It's this basically. There was originally a plan where they had to create an Earth like Earth and a Mars like Mars. There was originally a plan where they had to where they would have to make a Mars, and this would be the Earth. So if this would be called Mars, this would be called Earth. This would turn out to actually be their moon, because they thought they would be on Mars. So in actuality, the moon was formed, but it used to actually be Mars. And then the dynasty just creates a new country for the Alhenians, the native Alhenians, and just leaves immediately. And now their goal was to actually unite the entire country continent into one single country. And that's when the Alhen identity formed in the top of Rafania, while the big left and Alhenians actually formed over here, and the Irelanders actually formed over here. The Irelanders were the natives of Alhenia, which have now been displaced into a half-present something or the other for some reason. It's like, things happen like this. I mean, seriously, yeah. Meanwhile, the Big Landers, the Irelanders, and the Uranus Landers actually went into a stalemate. Meanwhile, basically, Jabania, more specifically Jan 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, had enough of this and had to merge Jabs and Duo into basically a big Jabania to actually fight Big Land. And it's basically, which pretty much proves that this probably wasn't his intention to actually divide the entire world. He just wants to create an awesome scenario where Jabania fights Big Land. Jabla, Republic, and Griffin. Jabland and Grafania. Jabwa, Republic, and Grafania actually merged to actually create Jabania. And the land migrated into lands of Spec, which basically, if you ask me, which now turns into West Jabafania and East Jabania. Which there are now 5 countries in this continent. There are now 5 countries in this world. And the United States of Alhenia actually annexed some territory out of Big Land, which they now have Ulysses and these islands. Meanwhile, Jabania actually has, which means Jabania has the largest territory in this planet so far, and Ireland has the smallest. And when this project got to 50 projects, and when this country got into, and when this remix chain got into 50 projects, aka 50 remixes, the United States of Alhenia actually takes part of Big Land as a result, which means the northern tip of Big Land actually gets more melting pottingly, as basically Alhenians sit here for some reason. The United States of Alhenia was made by some Dynasterians and mostly the Mauronians. The Mauronians are basically the majority of the country. And basically, Ireland is basically still a country for some reason. The United States of Alhenia fights against Big Land. Big Land hates Ireland. Big Land hates Uranus Land. All 4 countries basically hate the Big Lands, which is their main enemy, which is the common enemy to be saying for some reason. And then Area 51 came. Usal takes all of northern Olel, which will screw Big Land later. They take most of northern Olel, which will screw And then they take all of Northern Alola, which will screw up Big Land later. Uranus Lands also tried to get Northern Alola, which basically is just an avert way of actually seeing stuff. The United States of Alhenia actually got the tip, and now the Uranus Lands got the northern tip, which is basically pretty crazy. Yeah, Northern Alola actually got this crown. I mean, this island basically used to be a part of the Uranus Lands, which is pretty crazy. He's saying that this will only be a little part, but who the crown even cares? It's just how the Remixes chain has gone on to, mostly for that. And then Alhania gives an air screen to Ireland, and the Mars countries get removed entirely. People forgot about them, and they forgot that they were moon countries. It used to be basically saying Jabania is just not somehow something or the other for some reason. The Uranus Lands actually fought with Usal. The United States of Alhenia used to have an acronym called USAL before Ulysses joined in the Union. And then we fight past the border guards to get to Area 54. Another continent gets discovered, which will soon be scrunched by the rocks. And then I got myself a cool continent generator to actually create something. Although I had to pretty much remove some details of call, I had to basically adjust the details of the description to actually hide it. So I had to space it. The stats would put right over here to actually keep. And then the news. Another new continent is discovered. And then I actually had to space to see the war stats and press E to hide them to actually. And then I get the info to the continent, which is pretty crazy. This is the continent generator that I used, and it was last updated pretty much on Monday 10th, April 2023. It has the general description for content and its features. This description has a starting point to flesh out the story's locations and image of version of the shape. The image options are limited, but they not actually. As you can see, they actually diversify. It's basically improved from this. This continent was originally supposed to be small, which has a hot region with a climate to the north being tropical. I'm going to let you read the description for this, because it's the epitome of what could have been. But here's Gad, and for some reason. This little it creates another for some reason. This little continent is cold in the north and polar in the south. It is far from the tectonic boundaries. The land is generally very flat. Jed, the continent, has no volcanic activity. It does not experience any earthquakes. The wind regions are fairly strong, with large storms and extreme weather being infrequent. The sea to the west of Ged is difficult to traverse, while seas to the east, south, and north are gentle. Jed is plagued by exotic and invasive plants and animals. Yeah, basically, this thing was supposed to be for fantasy. Was supposed to be for making fantasy. Not. This continent came from that generator because, yes, somehow this gives Jabania more wiggle room to actually. Somehow this gives Jabania some wiggle room to actually go there. This also gives Big Land some room to actually go there. JYA and BL colonize the continent even though they can't. And then basically, they can, and then they did. Okay, so basically Area 59, basically, we thought they had to get rid of this crown, but somehow, oh, you're right. England colonizes the new island for some reason. It's a hidden description to say the least. And for exemptions to actually have to call you last time for some reason. And then a new country forms called Palestine. This country is basically made from actual Jordanians and biglanders who want to actually create a free haven that's safe from taxes and governments, such as the United States of Alhenia and Uranus lands. There were four countries. The United States of Alhenia, the Uranus lands, Jabania, and Bigland. The fifth one basically was Palestine. And then the world got smaller for some reason. And this was supposed to be Area 61, but this world got so small to become so small in the phone. Some conspiracy theorists say this must be the border that they had. Which, the sea's over here, the sea's over here, the sea's north of here, the sea's south of here. And yeah. There must be more to it than the entire crown. You see, this is what I expect should be a little continent, not some small one. Palestine, however, is basically already that small. Really weighing pretty much from west coast to the east coast, to almost the east coast. The Washable Kingdom actually regained its territory. But yeah, it's basically small. And then we reach Area 62, where the Uranus lands actually invade the Washable Kingdom in Jabania. And now they're reduced into one little equal sign. Cute little guy. Basically, it's pretty much crazy to see how this culture is actually going for some reason. Spec and these other countries basically have for some reason. And Washable Kingdom actually invades Jabay. The Washable Kingdom actually invades the corners of Jabania and the Uranus land. And some of the Uranus land is still from here. The United States of Alhenia actually still exists, while the tip of Uranus land is still by Uranus lands. Bigland and then Jabania are unaffected. Bigland is unaffected by this, but Jabania somehow not. And then pretty much the entire world was purged by the northern Jabania and the southern Bigland, thanks to this cramming continent which had no people for some reason. The Washable Kingdom and basically those pesky islands got nuked. Bigland. Somehow the United States of Alhenia failed to become a nation, and thanks to the purge. This is basically a 66 and 67. South Bigland actually split away from the Biglandian government. Sorry for the mess of words. This Bigland is actually a more other government something or other thing. It basically was the same as the other Bigland, but not like the other Bigland. The Washable Kingdom actually conquers northern Jabania, willing Jabania to be its own spot, and basically Uranus lands to actually be but still have the Washable Kingdom nukes everyone, including Bigland. Washable Kingdom still nukes everyone, but not for some reason. But the countries fight back for some reason. The United States of Alhenia and Lucis become independent, while Bigland and loses some territories. Southern Bigland still exists for some reason. Jabania basically He wants to claim the territory back. Miranda's lands. Yeah. This was the first ever music that was not Deltarune's Root Buster. It actually appeared earlier. It was the first ever change soundtrack to actually exist. Washable Kingdom gained some islands. In fact, Durbat Island was the first island to be split by was the Washable Kingdom in the north and the Eastern Jabania in the southern territory. It was also the first time that Rakista actually had its own territory. It was also the first time that Eastern Jabania actually got created, and the first time that Western Jabania actually existed. The Alhenian Big Land Union actually exists to crush Usao. Which would actually be crazy. East Jabania declares independence, and the war between Jabania and the Washable Kingdom ends. Eastern Jabania is actually a buffer state between these two, which is pretty crazy since it was the first buffer state to ever exist in this universe. This was the one. And then there was a new island for some reason. As of the current remix chain that I have over here, that one, and doesn't exist anymore. That land doesn't exist anymore. The land that's similar to this the land that's similar to this the land that's similar to this territory is the Coral Republic, and its territory that's at the northern part. So yeah, basically, A69 is all for some reason. And then came the Repurge. Usao and the other countries ceased to exist, while the Uranus land and actually still exists for some reason. And the Washable Kingdom exists. Wow, what pleasant and sounding music you have over here. Is that Beethoven? However, there are 4 countries now existing. There used to be 3, but now there's 4. Big Land conquers some territory to actually which conquered the historical area of Polstein. Polstein is basically named that because, yeah, it was a Middle Eastern term that came before Rakistan came over here. This island is occupied by Jabania, which used to be split under Washable Kingdom and Washable Kingdom and influence. Yeah. And then the Root Buster came back. These two musics were the only musics that existed before. Were the only 2 musics that actually played before. These were the first ever music that played before Dubbing became to exist. Big War and the Alliance finds new land and new country only. Norman's land is gone, but at least the southern one exists. Alania, this was the first time that Alania existed. Tesla existed, and basically this land is actually occupied by Jabania, which is currently nuking the Washable Kingdom, with Big Land as its ally. All of these islands exist for some reason as well, and the Washable Kingdom surrenders, and it's divided by these 3 lands. These 2 islands are called Teasy Island. And then somehow, there's okay, and then we have for some reason that there was no for some reason. Basically, Zarquon was a rebooted version. Basically, Ireland was a rebooted version of Mars, and featured lands. Big Land has its own circle land. Javania has its own circle land. Uranus Lands has its own circle land. The aliens have, and then we see the aliens, and then we see Ireland actually returning, and then basically, and then Uza, and then U.S. Alhenia that actually gets their own territory, and then we see an old friend, the United States of America. They added some rules here because yeah. The United States of America was basically a silent country for many years, only existing in Zarquon Crimean War, international wars for many years, and it actually reached Circle Land. Basically, Hot Crystal was the first to ever recognize that the United States of America exists. And then we have basically, what I can actually say is basically, Big Land versus Ireland, fighting each other. Some Irelanders missed that this would be their land. Basically, at the east of Big Land. But somehow that was a mistake by the cartographer named Jaden 67890. And then we have this little special thing, coral. These guys are from the ocean. They're real low, and then they grow up high, and then these corals reach up so high that you could easily see them in the ocean. And some Maroonians and Fresharians actually colonized this land to make it gain independence. But in actuality, the Corallians were actually sentient and were closer to the Maronians than to actual coral, allowing it to actually find its way to get independence. Oh yeah, I know that was actually something like that. Okay. They're literally fighting each other, in space, and in the ground, and on Earth. So it's an interstellar war, if you ask me. And then basically the Alliance is harvesting the coral reefs to make materials. There's basically two coral. This bridge was specifically meant so that they would harvest the coral. And there was a coral over here. Yeah, uh-oh. And then there was that one time that there was too many coral in the water. And it was basically all a big hoax made by some person who was in exile to actually make sure that everybody would be scared. Yeah. And then we pretty much have basically, and then things slow down for an entire month. It somehow has been 4 months, or maybe 3, I don't know. It was 2 months since the last remix. Map Remix 81. Chain 81. And now there was nothing left. Ireland suffered. Big Land lost some territory. For some reason. Because people have been nuked. And the country will become extinct sometime in the future. Which basically means that this planet will be uninhabited for some reason. It wasn't, because this was probably in spite of Ambion 0139 for actually putting the yellow hand on column 12357, but it wasn't. It we wasted 2 months for some reason. But then it instantly revived. And so there they were. Zarquon becomes independent. Zarquon basically becomes independent from Bigland because they are pretty much pissed that the nukes wouldn't protect them. But honestly, it's pretty much because I wanted there to actually be an independent country on this continent. Not actually some things. So they actually gained independence. And then they didn't. And then they got independence with more land. And then they didn't. And its borders were basically back when it was Remix 82. And then actual demanded big ones to actually not delete Arcadia. And they responded with do not delete Bigland. And then they deleted the part of Bigland. And then the first ever Middle East inspired country actually came to be, only by name. It was Rakistan. And then the coral got basically ravished a little bit, but it's basically for some reason. But at the time, I thought it was going to be an alternate universe remix thing with 3 continents. But somehow I actually made sure that this wouldn't happen. Because these guys were in South have ice caps, I put that in South Pole. And since they actually have, and so I actually put the North Pole here as well. Which basically was pretty cool for some reason. Zarquon even got its own planet for some reason. Zarquon even got its own land for some reason. Well, basically, it's all already got the pretty much all of these things. I actually was pretty much so angry at basically Jaden, and that I actually had to make Zarquon more separate from the basic Zarquon, from basically a Bigland, the country's historic oppressor. Zarquon exists, and basically the alternate Zarquon. The alternate Zarquonians basically it's all over here. And then the Zarquonians settled everywhere. And what happened? It was basic. There was literally too much. This country got corrupted. Yeah, basically, its country got basically. And then the Zarquonians actually settled on Titronius. Back when basically they were out here exploring new continents. There was a continent over here, and there was a continent over here, and there were continents all over here. And Twaziland was over here. So here, and these islands were over here, and the Titronius was actually here. Which is pretty crazy. And then there was all those things. And then there are more projects that I had to remix in spite of him actually deleting Zarquon. That one planet was basically a country. A person in alternate universe. Okay, it goes to actually study the life here. Which means that basically, if one Zarquon exists, the continent will somehow how some things will go wrong. And then, it's an unfortunate person for alternate universe. That's only gives the second copy itself is frame paradox. Time to get the whole talk. Not as well. The Zarquons are somehow going to alternate universes. Not knowing what to do, the Zarquons colonize the bit of back. This is de jure clay. For some reason. And no, that's basically not de facto. This is not de facto. This is de jure. And then Zarquons come from an alternate universe. And they have landed here. Uranus has offered them a spot for them to stay just for a day. The Zarquonian Arhenians actually decolonized over here. And then what happens? And a desperate Zarquon actually typed to from our timeline, suggesting that this was basically the layout of the timeline. Hello, can you hear us? Please help. We have created an AU machine that can help us understand AUs, but now it's out of control. For heaven's sake, please help. Never take. And then they go to the sun. This is where the white Zarquons come from. Let me go, y'all. And then the Zarquonians exist for some reason, which are now inhabiting an island for some reason. Yeah, the Zarquonians actually got everywhere, and that tells something. And that actually tells something. And that's what actually scares the Zarquonian government to this day. Meanwhile, USM hates USAU and takes a large part of it, and USAU also discovers a new island. This is also basically it's Boris. Basically, it translates Osawa was actually here in the United States of Alhani. This is at a time when they wanted independence from it. This still leaves a gap onto it. The USM finds a new planet just to screw Usawa over for some reason. We used to call these guys planets. I thought they were planets, but they were actually circles. They were actually circles, pieces of circle land. Yeah. We're just gonna have to speed things up. Number 94, USM basically the scram happens that Finland actually conquers the Ukrainian land. 95, a new island is discovered called Moonlandy. Yeah, and basically these guys are still playing their hellish game for some reason. And remix number 96, basically, Rakistan is actually, the rebels actually spring up from Rakistan to actually for a new revolution. And somehow a new island is discovered between Kroll and Alania. Number 97, Usawa finally breaks free and retakes his mainland that was many moons ago. But Usawa has used ice to blockade them. And no, that did not come from the Circle Land. Usum is actually made of entirely of bodies of water in Zarquon Prime. Remix number 98. Coral finds its way to the other planet, discovering a new landmass. Remix number 99. In the USM starts a little project called Operation Underseas, which focuses on Holland's maritime already an advantage of being the USM, which basically the Japanese team was actually made and not anything or anything. Also where the studio was actually made to commemorate the 100th remix. Bigland exits the island on the other planet, and wow, it's basically fun. And unfortunately, we don't have time to actually do the others. But hey, what's up? Anything. currently ongoing thanks to basically the revival. Okay, that's all. I'm out of time. Thank you. Goodbye.